And welcome back to part 43 of Death End Request, where we are doing the last floor of the pain area. Hooray! And it's also, as you can probably tell by the video length, the most challenging. But I say that I don't really find any of the pain area particularly challenging, or like any particular fight that stands out as a problem. It's just the thing as a whole starts to burn on you. Like in this floor, we're going to get to an encounter, and I'll try and point it out when I spot it, but there's a particular enemy that's like kind of like a humanoid thing, but it's got like scorpion pincers coming out of its shoulders, and those things have way too high defense, either that or way too high a health bar to justify being a normal enemy and justify as many as they are. And once they appear once, they're in every single fight for the rest of this, which is probably the biggest reason why this video is 57.5 minutes long. Well, 57.5 minutes for my recording. In my editing, I've yet to add the intro, which will add about another 15 seconds or so. But still, like, this video, like, when I recorded it, I was like, wow, that felt a lot longer than the other floors, but, oh, I can imagine it's not going to be that bad. I can imagine it'll be about 40 minutes, and I look at it and it said 57, and I was like, oh. And the worst part is that I've burnt through pretty much all of my conversation points that I wanted to make. So I have no idea how on earth I'm going to try and make this last the full video. So you're going to have to forgive me if I mumble and stumble more often than I usually do going through this, because I will just run out of things to talk about. This is a long ass video to try and think of things to discuss. Like, I guess I could talk about what I want to do in the future, but my future plans for Let's Plays are kind of loose of how I handle them. Like, I have ideas that I want to do, but a lot of the time I'll do prep work for several, but then it'll just be one that I'll pick on one day and say, yeah, I'm going to do that one. And then there I go, kind of thing. That being said, I do want to try, keyword try, so because who knows what I'll end up with, to play what is ultimately just a more optimistic or happier game next game I do. Because I do feel like
who should I aim for?
The Death End as a whole, as much as I love it, it is an emotional burn because of how tiring and constant its dark plot is. Like, keep in mind, like, almost every other video there was a really horrific death end in the main plot line, and then there was the actual main events in the story. I remember in the chapter 10 where literally everyone died and Sheena screamed out to the heavens, like in absolute like breakdown mode, where she just didn't know what on earth to do anymore. Like, this game is traumatizingly dark at points. Also, you can see me flipping a shit here in this fight because the enemies keep on healing, and they heal off like full bars of health, and they've already got way too much health, so I start losing my rag here. And you can tell when I'm doing it because I start doing these little like studs circles with whoever I'm playing as in my fucking anger, because I'm like, stop healing. Yeah, like, but I do want to try and do something happier next time around. Like, there's a few games that I've been keeping an eye on, or just started going through, or just things that I think maybe, like, I was thinking of maybe doing Atelier Ryza next, but firstly, I've yet to finish Atelier Ryza for myself, and I'm not a fan of doing blind playthroughs unless I can help, unless it's completely unable for me to do, kind of thing. So I told you I'd be stumbling.
All good.
But I don't know. Atelier Ryza is a lovely game, and I am really enjoying it. But there's slow, and then there's Atelier Ryza slow. Like, it's slow start. Like, from the start of the game up until recruiting Claudia, which is like the first proper new party member from the original 3, because you start with 3 party members. You got Ryza herself, and then you got her 2 friends, Lent and Tao, and all of them are good in their own right, but you kind of want another member of your party after like 3 hours, and then you're introduced to this lovely girl Claudia, and it's like, yeah, she seems really capable, yeah, she looks like someone great, and then you have to go through so many goddamn hurdles just to recruit her. And when you finally recruit her, you're like, wow, I'm already 12 hours into this. But oh, hang on a minute, where's the actual main meat of the plot? We've yet to actually leave the opening area per se in the plot. Like, the stakes have yet to actually be raised yet. It's still in the quote unquote opening of the game, and I'm like, I've been here for 12 hours, what the hell?
Who should I aim for?
And I get, like, I've never played any other Atelier games in the series, so I don't know if this is common practice, but it's just like, holy shit, it is a slow game. Like, the only thing that's putting me through is that the characters are brilliant. Like, Ryza as a character is relatable as all hell. She's just bored of her life and so wants to do something. Like, that's so easy to relate to.
Let's find more victims.
So, like, your tower is a bit of a wimp though. Like, of the OG 3 cast, Ryza, Lent, and Tao. Lent, I liked having in the party because because of his physical strength and things like that. But Tao, like, almost right from the get-go, I was like, as soon as I can replace you, I will, because he's just not good. He's just a bit, and I think I know a bit of bias is shining through on that one because I didn't really like his character. Like, he's the kind of the one kid in the group that's a bit more on the timid side. So should we really be doing this kind of character? Which I can imagine as the story goes on he'll get braver and more confident, but they're always annoying at the start of the adventure, and he is no exception. And so now I finally got Claudia in the party, I immediately swapped out with her. Because Claudia's great, she's a great character, really optimistic. 'Cause that's the thing, Ultima Ryza as a whole is a very optimistic game. There's dark moments, of course there is, but as a whole it's extremely uplifting and optimistic. It's a real good feel-good game kind of thing. And the alchemy system in the game as well. It took me a while to get the grips of it because it's not the most intuitive thing in the world to learn, but once you get a grip of it, it's so fun to dick about with. To just go run around outside in the fields for a while, pick up all sorts of little ingredients using different tools, so you get, like, if you just go up to, say, a tree and whack it with your weapon, you might get some resources, but if you actually bring a proper wood cutting axe to it, you'll get different resources, sort of thing. So if you get better equipment, it's good to return to old stuff to see what new stuff you can make out of it, and then use said resources in the alchemy to make even more wild things. Like, I've got a real badass weapon on Claudia that I got, like, as soon as she joined the party. I just like dumped a shitload of resources into making her a weapon, but then I managed to, by combining the right things, build an additional recipe on top of it, so it leveled up to a completely different weapon beyond that, and then I covered that to the brim with extra resources to add a bunch of bonuses. Like, it's got like an attack bonus and a speed bonus and extra defensive slots, and it does really good stats, and the quality was 100, which is a fucking amazing quality to get a weapon on. And I was like, holy shit, and I equipped it on her, and her stats just put her higher than Ryza, and I was just like, whoops, maybe I got a little carried away. But it's just, once you get a feel for it, the alchemy system is so fun to mess around with. Yeah, there's a few, like, snags that I've already noticed, mainly with the controls. Like, there's a few decisions with the control scheme that baffle me. That when I was playing it, like, some of them I kind of get, and some of them are very much appreciated. Like, having quick travel like mapped to the select button or your touchpad is a godsend, because you could just access it so quickly. You just tap it and go. But there's a lot of other things where I sit there and I have to stop and look at my controller and go, why is down on the D-pad for the map? For like the map of the area you're in. Why do I have to hold down R1 to get anywhere at a decent speed? But I think there's little things like that, but I'm not complaining too much. It's just like odd control mishaps. But that was one game that I was kind of like, I'd like to do some point, but the only thing stopping me from doing it is like I haven't finished it. When I finish it and have given it a little bit of room to breathe, because playing a long-winded JRPG again straight after you finish it the first time is the quickest way to burn yourself out, and I'm not about that life. Other than that, I still need to do Sonic Mania Plus at some point, but that, I don't know how long that one will be. I can't imagine it being that long of a playthrough, because it's the same game again, just with different characters and slightly reworked level design. But that would be something a bit more uplifting to go through as well after this. But then other than that, the other games that I want to play through aren't light-hearted. Like, I haven't made it clear enough. I love Dragonstar Varnir, another JRPG by SHAREfactory, the Neptunia crew, that came out this year. I love that game so much. But that game, although gets optimistic if you're going for the true ending, is extremely pessimistic for a long stretch of the journey. And there's a lot of doubt and mistrust and, like, impending doom throughout the whole game. Like, Dragonstar Varnir, as much as I love it, stressful as shit. Like, I mentioned it in my review, but there's this kind of mini game that you have to participate in to get the true ending, where essentially starting from chapter 3 onwards till chapter 10, you're on a time limit. And that, you've got 2 time limits going. You've got a hard immediate time limit and a soft time limit working in the background. If either of them hit 0, you're not getting the true ending. And you have to either load an earlier save to try and cut a shortcut, or load all the way back to chapter 3. Which is why I heavily recommend leaving a save just before that point, so if worst comes to it, you can go back to it. But it is like, what? Because you have the short time limit of there's three kids, then you have to keep them happy by feeding them, because if they're not happy, the dragon inside will start to eat at them, and if the dragon eats at them too much, it will kill them. However, when you feed them, you also feed the dragon, and so if you feed them too much, you will also make the dragon too strong, and so it will consume them and kill them. And so you got the short time limit of you got to keep on top of feeding them, but the bar of feeding them never goes back down, only their mood will go down. So the bar, once the bar is completely full, they will die. So your small time limit is feeding them, but your long-winded soft time limit is making sure that bar doesn't ever fill. So you've got to really fucking race, feed them, pay attention to what the bar does, and then move from there. And it gets like, for me, the bar, I didn't let the bar go any further than, like, I want to say a little over a third. Like, I was pretty hasty about it to such an extent, and if I ever do a let's play of it, I'll probably do the same, just for the sake of being safe. I straight up would I'd fight every enemy on the way to the dungeon, but every time I'd get to a save point, because you can warp to save points in Dragonstar, I would walk back home, check on the kids, since time doesn't move when you're actually in home, it only moves when you're dungeon crawling. Which is like a godsend. Like, I was very grateful that I decided to do that. Check on the kids, see what their mood is doing, feed them if I need to, and then return to that save point and continue. I didn't bother unless the treasure was right in my way of exploring every corner and looting until I was past the save point. Once I was in chapter 11 and I was in the safety zone, and I knew I was, because as soon as you're in chapter 11, it turns off. Like, you can still feed the kids and it'll fill the bar up, but they won't. Their mood will never lower. So the mechanic is turned off essentially. So you can leave them alone and just carry on going. And so after that point, I went all the way back to the first dungeon of chapter 3 and went back through every single environment to hunt down every single little treasure I left before then entering the end game and finishing off everything that was there. But I'd love to show off Dragonstar at some point, but I want to try and do something else, because as much as I love JRPGs and love playing through them, I've done, after Final Fantasy 15, it wasn't that long before I did start doing Neptunia, and after Neptunia, it was immediately afterwards I went to Death End. And so I know, as much as I love these games, I am risking burnout, and so I need to I need to do something else essentially. But that all being said, with work, my job being the way it is, it's going to stop picking up over Christmas, so whatever decision I do decide to make, if I'm honest, you're probably not going to see it until at least after Christmas, maybe even after the New Year. I'm more aiming towards after New Year, because then I can relax and start going into 2020. But I also kind of want to do shorter projects at first in 2020 as well, because I don't want a project to still be lingering on when the Final Fantasy VII Remake comes out. Can you blame me? Can you really? I know it's only part 1 of like 4 or whatever they said it was, but I can't not. It's too much of a landmark of gaming history for me to not want to get it. Final Fantasy VII, just like a lot of people, has a very special place in my heart, and so I need to play it. Nothing else can be blocking me. I need to be able to just jump on and go for it. Oh, there's me losing my shit again because the dragon keeps fucking healing itself, and it heals itself for like nearly 200,000 each time for like no reason. So thanks. And like, so I really don't know what to let's play. Like, there's a lot of stuff on the Mega Drive collection that was released on PS4 that I'd love to go through. But I don't know if they would be long enough, kind of thing. Like, I don't know if I could justify them. Like, I'd love to go through the original Vector Man, because I love Vector Man. Or Gunstar Heroes, because that's great. Or maybe even Ristar, or Ristar, or however you fucking pronounce that little star's name. But, I don't know. it's just one of those things. Like it's getting to that point because it's a next year. Although yes, there are definitely some big releases. As a whole, it's gonna be a little bit more on the quieter side for the most part, because I know everyone is preparing for the next generation. So although yes, Last of Us 2 will come out, which like I said I'm not gonna get, but I know it's going to be a big deal for a lot of people in that sense. And the FF7 and Persona 5's Director's Cut all coming out next year. But outside of that, there aren't any like real major releases that are like super exciting for me that I think yes I'm definitely going to let's play outside of Death End 2. Because let's be honest, Death End 2, after how much time I put into this one, I'm definitely going to want to let's play Death End 2 regardless of its quality when it comes out. Because I'm genuinely like super excited for Death End 2 at this point. Like I can't wait for it. And I'll probably, assuming it comes out next year, because to be honest, who knows with how poor quality it looked at in the original demo that we saw a few months back. When the remake for SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom comes out, I'll definitely be wanting to let's play that, because SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom is one of my all-time favourite video games. It's definitely in my top 5 favourite games of all time. But I'm just extremely hesitant with that game because the footage they showed us at Gamescom did not impress me. I know it was very early days, but I looked at it and I was like, ooh. And it's not even the things that are like, because a lot of people said, oh no, the graphics will get an improvement, it's just the graphics. And I was like, no, it's not just the graphics that were off. And I've played so much of the original Battle for Bikini Bottom that I noticed straight away the entire size of the level, like the mass of the level, had been shrunk down slightly. Just enough that jumps that were intended to be slightly difficult were now piss easy. Just enough that obstacles that were supposed to be cleverly placed are now easy to just jump around without a hazard because it's smaller. Like everything scale was just that tiny teeny bit smaller across the board. And that worried me. That really worries me because graphical improvements won't change shrinking down the game design. Shrinking down the entire game's world and design is only going to hurt it in the long run. At least I firmly believe it, because of how cleverly and intelligently placed everything was in the original. Fucking with the level design in that sense is just going to hurt it.
All good.
Which is like why, like I've mentioned it before, but if they said that, oh, the remake is also going to be packaged with the original, so you got the best of both worlds kind of thing, I would be so much more at ease about it. But the fact that it's at least as far as we know now, it's just gonna be the remake and then you're done with it. I'm very like, it's why I'm kind of also waiting on more information surrounding the PlayStation 5, because we know for a fact it's gonna be backwards compatible with the PlayStation 4. But the rumour mills have been going kinda goddamn crazy with the fact that it might be backwards compatible for every generation going back, since PS1 and PS2 run on very similar firmware, so they're easy to do. And the PS3 would be the only one that'd be a real struggle because of its very premature inclusion of Blu-ray at a time when Blu-ray wasn't as smooth and easy to handle as it is nowadays. But outside of that, like if they can do full-fledged backwards compatibility with every console generation, that would probably be enough to stop me let's playing the remake, unless the remake actually does manage to like sort its shit out and get everything together the way I hope it is. Because if they announce it's going to be completely backwards compatibility, I will happily wait, get a PS5 at some point, and let's play the original SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. Assuming they keep SHAREfactory, because that is something that is also a little nerving for me. Like, I'd like to think that Sony will keep the whole SharePlay system and SHAREfactory and whatnot, but it's the fact that they might not. If they get rid of it, until I can get some money together and learn some decent editing, this channel could be fucked. Straight up, because I won't. My only way of recording right now is through things like SHAREfactory, because I just don't have the money. I'm not a fully fledged YouTuber, and my job doesn't pay enough for me to get like a proper capture card and proper editing equipment and yada yada. Like I mentioned before, that my laptop broke a few months ago, and I've just gone without since. I just don't have a laptop right now, because I just don't have the money spare to just replace broken things, to just fill in the void for stuff that isn't working properly. So if the PS5 goes back to just having a start and select button, I might be screwed. I hope not. I'm hoping when the main PlayStation event, which I can imagine will be like March this time, comes around, they do even if we see the controller, if I can see the word share on the controller, that'll be enough for me to breathe, because that means it's another console generation of me being able to do Let's Plays for you guys. But that could be like the stone cold killer. If they get rid of it, I'm completely stuffed, because I am not using the Xbox One system, because the Xbox One's recording system is god awful, because they only want you to use Mixer and can't dare contemplate the possibility of people wanting to use something else. So if you want to upload something to YouTube, that's the reason why I've only done a really small handful of Xbox One videos, because the only way to do it is to download a specific app on your phone, or put it on a specific file attached to your email, and then manually from there transfer it over to YouTube. And then even when you do that, it doesn't matter how perfectly you do it, the video comes out extremely choppy. Like, I made a joke out of it when I did the Sonic Adventure video. I was like, oh, the game's at 20 frames per second, but to be honest, I was probably more spot on than I made the joke at the time. It really did feel like around 20 frames, maybe even less, of how choppy it was. And that's just not right, especially when you consider it's goddamn Microsoft. They should have the money spare to do it right, but they just didn't, unless you're doing it through Mixer. But who the fuck's gonna really use Mixer? But if the PS5 does end up being completely backwards compatible, it's like with everything down the list of old console generations, I will have to break my rule of life and get it day one. Because I usually wait about a year to 2 years before getting it, because there's no games that I really care for that are on it. It's the same reason why I've yet to really get a Nintendo Switch, because the only game I'm really interested in is Shin Megami Tensei 5, and that's not on it yet. Like, I was also interested in Octopath, but the fact that that's also now come to PC makes me think that it might come to PS4 and Xbox later down the line, or at least PS4, because you know how Japanese devs are with the Xbox. Like, it might at least come to PlayStation later down the line, so I'm gonna hold off for that. But outside of it, like I said, it's just SMT5. And SMT5, God knows when that game will come out. I'd like to think we'll get more information about it next year, but honestly, who knows? But if they're just working hard on it and it's taking them a bit longer than expected, then so be it. As long as they haven't cancelled it. A lot of people have been like, oh, because Persona 5 did so well, they cancelled SMT5. And I'm like, no. It's never stopped them in the past.
I'm starting to believe.
Like, did you see how much money they put in the Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne? Before Persona 5, Nocturne was their most expensive project, and it shows, because it's graphically and environmentally superior to Digital Devil and Persona 3 and 4. Especially Persona 3 and 4, because they actually made normal looking human models, not these little chibi versions of them that they have in Persona. Like, they actually had humanoid like designs, not whatever the hell they were doing in Persona. So it never stopped them then. Or about an SMT4 where they put it on 3DS. SMT4 and its direct sequel Apocalypse, neither of them sold brilliantly, but they still happened, they still carried on. Same with Strange Journey. Just because Persona's selling well doesn't mean they're going to suddenly not do the other ones. Atlus have dedicated teams. They have one team that's dedicated to the Persona stuff, but they have a completely other team dedicated to Shin Megami Tensei. In the same vein that Arc System Works has a red team and a blue team, one for Guilty Gear and one for BlazBlue. They divide their team to work on different projects. I just wish there was more communication between the two teams, to be honest, because SMT4 introduced this amazing feature to the compendium in that game, and Persona 5 didn't have it, and I'm willing to bet Persona 5 Royal won't either. And it was just such a, like, wow, this is such a cool little thing to do. Because they had this thing where, if you already had the demons, because they were demons of Personas in SMT, if you already had the demons in your compendium to fuse something else, like say you're trying to make King Frost, say you need Jack Frost, Blackjack, and I don't know, Pyrojack, for instance. Say you don't have any of them on you, but you've got all 3 of them registered in your compendium. When you go to click on King Frost, instead of saying you don't have these demons, it will say you have these demons in your compendium. Do you want to spend the money here to get them out of your compendium now, and then immediately do the fusion with them? Ignoring the whole having to buy them separately, put them into a demon slot, make sure you have enough space for them, and if you don't, have to get rid of one that you might actually want, but just because it's one fusion you have to give up, and all that jargon. It never goes straight to a demon slot. You literally take it straight from the compendium straight into fusing. It's such a quick method, because then you don't have to worry about getting them out. Like, come on, like trying to get Saturn Isle in Persona 5, when you have all the Personas, I had to take a picture of the list and then go through the list on my phone afterwards whilst looking through my compendium and manually just picking out all the personas I needed to get for it. When, despite the fact I knew I had them all, which shouldn't have been the case. I should have been able to just click on Saturn Isle and the game go, oh yeah, you have got them all. Here's how much all of them would be to get them all out of the compendium. Do you want to do the fusion now? Because that's such a clever and innovative little system that helps out so much. That's in SMT, but I'm willing to bet still won't be in Persona 5 Royal because of how little communication the two teams seem to have with each other. And don't get me wrong, there are some things that are in SMT that I'm glad aren't in Persona. Like the one more system is in both SMT and Persona, but SMT goes one step further by having a one less. If you miss an attack or your attack is blocked, you lose an additional turn on top of the one you just wasted.
Who should I aim for?
Which is just like, ah, because it's like, because in SMT, instead of making it so each character gets one turn, they make it so you have 4 turns to share amongst your team of 4. So you can kind of make one member have more turns whilst a different one passes it on and loses theirs, kind of thing. So if you get a 1 more, you now have a 5th turn to work with, and it stacks up to possibly 8 if you keep on getting weaknesses or critical hits. Whilst if you lose one, it will take an additional one on top of it, so if you miss, instead of still having 3 turns left, you only have 2 left, and if you miss again, your turns are gone, because it takes an additional one on top of it, which is brutal. When an enemy gets it, when an enemy misses and they lose another turn, you're like, get in. But when you lose a turn, it can make the difference sometimes, especially because they escalated it as well, where they have like instead of a 1 less, they have an all loss system, where if an attack is straight up reflected or drained, so if they restore health from it or bounce it back at you, your turn just ends. You don't finish off any turns. It just completely ends your side of the fight, and it goes to the enemy's turn straight away. Doesn't matter how many turns you could have. You could have the full stack of 8, and all of them will fucking vanish. And yeah, it works the same for the enemy, but the enemy's AI in SMT is not like the enemy AI in some other games. They will never use an attack that will be reflected back at them or be drained unless it's literally the only thing they can do. So you have to like completely corner them, sort of thing, otherwise it's just not happening. Like the only way I got one was in SMT4. I had Ouroboros with me, and Ouroboros is like blocks half of the attacks, drains a few more, and then is weak to what's left. So I just got specific enhancements and boosts when I fused it to make it like counteract its weaknesses. So it was like almost immune to everything, but like brick wall. Yeah, it wasn't invincible, but it was helpful enough, and so I ended up cornering a lot of enemies, forcing them to attack the things that were either blocked, reflected, or drained. So I actually got to see the enemy get fucked, especially in the boss fights. Getting a boss to lose all 4 of their turns is such a godsend, because it's like, yes, like it's like a free strike afterwards. Because because it's not like you always have to almost dedicate one of your turns in a boss fight against SMT to just making sure everyone's in top form. Because if someone falls behind, they will get cleaned up. There is no room for negotiation on that. So like getting a freedom to just exploit it in your favor like that is like, god, yeah. That's another thing. Atlas, I get that there's like you're probably going to be worrying a lot more about a potential Persona 3 remake, because let's be honest, you haven't particularly been subtle that you're interested in redoing Persona 3, maybe Persona 4 with Persona 5's engine. But while you're at it, could you just like, it doesn't even have to be a remaster or anything, could you just like port up Nocturne to current platforms, please? I love to let's play Nocturne on this channel. Nocturne is one of the most fascinating games I've ever played. Like, then I'm not just talking about like, the story is the biggest part of it. The story itself is mind-boggling. Like, it's one of those stories that I genuinely, when the credits started rolling, I had to stop and just kind of process it for a while, because I was like, holy shit. Like, it was such an experience, I think is the best way to put it, like a genuine experience to go through Nocturne and what it was, everything it was trying to tell and everything it was trying to do. But then all the boss fights and finding your way around, all the secrets, how all the plot twists and how everything comes together and what you become throughout the journey of it, it's something that I would absolutely want to show to you guys, despite how brutally difficult it is. And yeah, I'd be an absolute coward with it and play the game on normal, because Shin Megami Tensei as a series is already the hardest turn-based JRPG franchise I've ever played, and so I am not going to play it on hard, even though it's kind of the thing of the franchise that you play the SMT games on at least hard. You don't have to play on any harder, but playing one at least hard. But I'm not brave enough for that, so I'll be playing it on normal if it does. But come on, Atlas, just a cheap port. You don't have to put any real effort into it. Just put it on PS4. I'd play it. I'd do a let's play of it, and I'd have an absolute blast showing it to you guys. But I'd almost know for a fact that Nocturne would be my longest project to date if they ever ported it. Nocturne is not a short game. And I know I say it's because it's an Atlas project, of course it is. But like, to give you an idea, if you've never played Nocturne, how big Nocturne is. You know how like Persona 3 onwards, because the game is forced to take place over like an actual day system, like going through each day, going through each week, going through each month, and going for about a year in each game. Because of that, the games always end up being anywhere from 60 to 90 hours long. Nocturne matches that, but doesn't have that system. You just keep on going to new environments, doing new things, helping out new people, fighting new bosses. Like, there is no waiting around. There is no waiting for a day to pass. The game just keeps on carrying on to the next thing, and it keeps it up for that long. Nocturne is not a short game. It is fucking huge, and I mean genuine huge, not the stretched out kind of huge that we get in Persona 3 onwards. And that's not to critique the later Persona games. I love Persona. Persona is one of my all-time favourite franchises. The fact that I did a whole video, one of my first like review-esque videos I ever did, was me talking about how Persona 5 changed my life, because it genuinely did. Persona 5 is one of the most important games of my life for when it came out and what it did for me. But I'm still going to critique parts of it, because you got to know how to critique what you love. You've got to critique how you love. It's what I was saying the other day. It's what keeps it keeps it alive, is critiquing what you love. And I will be heavily critiquing if they decide to keep Sketchy Akechi alive in the director's cut. I'll be critiquing it a hell of a lot. But I've done well so far. I don't know anything about Royal. I've not been spoiled by it at all. Other than like some of the things that everyone knew, like the new main character Kazumi. And like her, like, I've seen her persona, I've seen her design. She looks amazing. She fits in really well. And I know I'm biased. I've always got a thing for redheads, but she's not replacing Futaba, so it's fine. And I've also seen the whole My Palace, I think it's called, where you can kind of design your own thing. And I've seen that there is a there are optional fights you can do against the P3 protag and P4 protag. Like against Minato and Norakami. And that's it. I haven't looked at anything. I haven't heard any of the music. I haven't watched any of the trailers, because there was a lot of them. I've just completely stayed away from all of it. Ready for battle. Oh, and I know that Futaba has her own all-out attack final picture as well, which is amazing. I saw it and I was like, yes. Such a hero. Like Erica Linebeck, the English voice actress for her, summed it up best. Just how much she loved the character. She went, just look at her, cracked glasses, escaping from an explosion, still smiling, sticking her tongue out, thumbs up. She's still having a ball. That's like the spirit of a fun character. That's the spirit of my Futaba. Love that character to bits. One of my all-time favourite characters. I'm getting off topic again here, but the point is, SMT Nocturne is not a short game. SMT4 is a lot shorter, thankfully, but it's still a very healthy length. But then it's also kind of half the beast, because Apocalypse, the second half of it, exists, and together, I think together they're longer than Nocturne. It's just individually they're not.
I'll sink you.
Which is why I'm curious about SMT5. Like, how big is SMT5 going to be? I want it to be as big, if not bigger, than Nocturne at bare minimum, but we'll see.
I'll sink you.
And yeah, as you've probably been able to work out from now, how I've kind of just drifted along as I talk. I haven't actually got any subjects written down. Like, all the subjects I wanted to cover for this, I finished off last part, so I'm just kind of trying to talk as I go along here. And I haven't done too bad. We're 34 minutes into this, and I've still managed to kind of keep vocal somehow. Even if I am deadlining more as we go on. Like, I've just been talking about what I'd like to do in the future. Like, let me just like, sort of turn around and glance at my stuff. I'd love to cover any of the Yakuza games, but all of them have their final chapters cutscene blocked. Like, all of their final chapters are completely unrecordable. They have the PS4 system built in to stop recording, so I can't let's play them, because what would I do with the final footage? Steal someone else's? No, I'm not going to do that. But maybe, just maybe, if they do bring back SHAREfactory for PS5, they can make it so all games on PS4 that had cutscenes blocked have their blocks deactivated for the sake of a jumping console generation.
Alright.
Come on, Sony, hire me. That'd be a good idea. You know it would be. If you made it so the PS5 SHAREfactory didn't block any cutscenes from the PS4 games, there's so many games that would open up. I'd be able to Let's Play Tales of Berseria. I'd be able to Let's Play Persona 5.
I'll tear you apart.
So I'm willing to bet Royal will have all its cutscenes blocked as the entire game blocked as well, like the original P5 is, despite the fact I really wish they didn't.
All good.
But like there's so many games that have little moments or cutscenes blocked or things like that that means that I can't Let's Play them that I would love to. Like, I'm trying to looking back through my collection, I can already see a few that I'm like, if I could, I would have done it already. Like thankfully, like Idea Factory, oh no, I'll say Compile Heart, the publishers, they're probably the ones that make the decision, but Idea Factory and GRPG under them, none of their games have ever blocked any cutscenes for anything.
Leave it to me.
So I'm in a position of confidence that Death End 2 won't block any cutscenes. If it does, I'll cry. But I've got no reason to think it will. Same as if they ever put they've ever port Mary Skelter over to the PS4 in the West, because once again that's still bullshit, and it's a shame that they decided to go down that route of making it Switch exclusive but only on the Western version, not the Japanese version. Like, what the hell? That sounds way too much like a Nintendo just gave them some money for it kind of scenario, which is odd because it's not like it's like a big mainstream thing. It's not like, say, when Tomb Raider was evidently brought out and Rise of the Tomb Raider ended up on Xbox first and everyone kicked up a storm then, but because this was so much quieter and more obscure because it's not a mainstream game, no one's really said anything about it and everyone's just kind of taking it for what it is, and it's like, no, that is bullshit. Like, make it exclusive because it deserves to be an exclusive. Don't just buy your way to one to try and make your platform more accessible, sort of thing. It's like, remember how much stick everyone's been giving the Epic Game Store for all its bullshit and what it's been trying to do. So why ignore this one? I know, like I said, it's because it's a lot more of a quieter thing, so it's more that people just don't know about it, but it's still such a shame that it happened. But if Mary Skelter ever came to PS4, I'd happily Let's Play both of them as well. I'd probably do them back to back because I love Mary Skelter, even though I've yet to finish it. I'd love Mary Skelter. It's just that final dungeon that takes forever and I just haven't had the energy to go through it yet. But then if I did Mary Skelter 1, I'd have to confess straight away that I wouldn't use the entire party. Grendel might be best girl, but it doesn't mean I'd be using her in the party. Like, the first 5 you get are kind of the best 5 to have. So it's kind of like, why, like, you have Alice, you get Red, and then you get Sleeping Beauty and Snow White at the same time. And Sleeping Beauty is probably the only one that I could argue could be replaced, because she kind of just she's like physical ranged. I had her on and she's the only one that was physical and ranged, but it wasn't enough to kind of justify her being there. I just kind of kept her around so long that eventually it's like, look, you're here now, Missy, you're with us to the end. And then afterwards you get oh, what's her name? That's gonna bug me now, I can't remember the name. The small girl that you save at the end of the graveyard. Like the redhead, the one who's like really angry and hates on you like all the fucking time, but it only takes 2 seconds of you walking away before she's like, no, yeah, she does care about you as like a friend, like an older sister. She's just not gonna let you know that because she's full on tsundere. Hopefully that's enough of the description that you can work it. I'm literally like, in my mind, I'm looking at her face and I'm like, what's your name? I feel really bad for that. Like, I can't remember her name, that's really bugging me. But everyone else afterwards, I kind of just didn't use, to be honest. Which is a shame, because I love all the cast. Cinderella is such a fun character, I enjoy her being in the game. I enjoy, like I said, Grendel was best girl for me. Grendel is just so fucking funny, because she's so, like, she just does, I don't know if it's that she can't read the room, or whether she just doesn't care to. But because of it, she will just say what comes to mind, without even remotely considering what anyone else would even, like, dare to think about it. And it leads to so many brilliant situations or moments. Like, it's a little bit, like, crude, but there's this one moment, and it made me laugh my arse off. Like, I was giggling like a moron throughout the entire scene, where she wants to investigate like her body and how it reacts to the blood of the wardens that walk around the actual like main tower, because there are these wardens that drop this pinkish blood when they die, and the blood maidens, which are essentially the entire playable cast, react to it. But Grendel becomes curious as to how it actually reacts on skin, which I thought was actually a fair enough thing, because you only see it when you look in their eye or when they're drinking it, kind of thing. We don't actually see it on react at all to their skin, so being curious about that I think is very fair enough. I'm surprised no one else thought of it sooner. But the situation that arrives of her doing that is that she invites you, because you play as this character called Jack, and Jack is 100% just a player stand-in. He's just your character essentially. So she invites you in, and she's in nothing but her underwear, because she wants to reveal the most skin as possible to do it without being completely naked, and asks you to essentially smear it on her. And so Jack, rightly so, is a bit like, what the fuck? No, I'm not doing this. This is really like crude and questionable, and like people would get a really wrong idea. As Red walks in, and then Red walks in, sees what's going on, and she goes, "Oh, I didn't realise you two were so close. I'll leave you to it." And I was, well, you can already tell it's fucking hilarious. At least I found it hilarious. I'm sure some of you watching were sitting there going, what is this fucking moron on about? But I found it fucking hilarious, because then she's super embarrassed because she's just walked in on almost naked Grendel and you just standing there like like an absolute moron, like hi. And then as Red goes to turn around, it gets worse because Grendel gets the magical idea of saying, why does it have to just be my body? And she essentially just jumps on Red and says, hey, we should smear it on your body too, and starts trying to get her jacket off, to which I nearly called her Mary then, because Mary Skelter. I'll detour on that one in a second. Let me finish my story. But Red, bless her heart, like, she tries to fight with Grendel, but Grendel is surprisingly strong and is kind of winning the whole, let's just get enough layers off so we can smear this monster's blood on you. And Red turns to Jack and goes, can you help me? Try and save me here? And Jack, knowing better than to mess with Grendel, just leaves. He just fucks off. And I was just like, no, Jack, go back. It was... I think that's the main reason why I'd love to carry Mary Skelter 1, because I haven't laughed at, despite how dark the game is, I haven't laughed as hard at a game since the Neptunia games. Mary Skelter is fucking hilarious. It genuinely is one of the funniest games I've ever played. But yeah, going back to my detour, since I mentioned it, before I ever played Mary Skelter, the only character that I'd only ever constantly seen artwork of was Red, and so not knowing any better, I thought her name was probably Mary Skelter, or something along that line. So I always just called her Mary, and even though now I know better that her name is Red, and there isn't a character called Mary Skelter, it's just the name they decided to go to because it's in reference to a book, because skeltering is a thing, but it's in reference to a book about Mary.
Another one down.
Like, it's just how the title came to be, which is a cool title to be fair, but it's still a bit...
Alright.
It's still enough to confuse me. But so sometimes I slip into it and still call Red Mary, because I said before I ever played the game, I just assumed that was what she was called.
Who should I aim for?
But yeah, there's so many little moments. I love it. So I love Grendel as a character, but there's so many moments in Mary Skelter that make me really wish I could let's play it for this channel. And I can imagine the sequel, even though it's actually a prequel, also has a lot of hilarious moments that are really fun and enjoyable. I just have yet to play it. And the soundtrack's really top notch as well. So you're not only like really enjoying the story and settings like that, but you're listening to some really solid beats when you're exploring around. And I say that because like, a lot of people say, oh, Mary Skelter 1's soundtrack is alright, but 2's is amazing. And yes, I'll agree, 2's soundtrack is, what I've heard on it online, is amazing. It's such a solid soundtrack. But I think the only reason why people think the first one is okay is because the second one's now out and people realise how much better the second one is. But it doesn't mean the first one's bad, it's just the second one grew. The second one, the composers grew as a team and got better at what they were doing. In the same way that I can imagine, despite how much I enjoyed Death End 1's soundtrack, Death End 2's soundtrack is going to blow me out the water. Because the few odd bits of music that we've heard so far from the we heard a bit of music from the original teaser trailer, which some people said maybe it was just an advertisement music, but I'm like, Compile Heart don't have that much money, so it wouldn't have been just advertisement music. It's almost, so at least to me, it'll be a track in the game, maybe like a late game track, maybe it's just the battle theme, who knows. But that how hectic and powerful, and then that transition into that really cool piano piece at the end when they showed the title of Death End 2. I was like, yes, this track is amazing. It's already a lot better than what Death End 1 has, and I love Death End 1's soundtrack for what it is, even though it's not as good as some other games. But then we've heard the new title theme, made by the same band who did this game's main theme song, and the new track is called Bug Fixer, which I'm still waiting for an official full upload. You can get it on Spotify, but I'm not about to spend money on music. like full disclosure, I've almost never spent money. I just use YouTube to MP3, so I'm waiting for someone to put it on YouTube and then I'll listen to it. But that sounds amazing. And then in the actual official reveal of how the opening cinematic is going to be, afterwards they did like a little bit showing off pre-order details, and they played what I can only assume is going to be the title theme for the game, because it very much sounds like one. And that one is so atmospheric. Like when Death End 2 comes out, when I eventually let's play it, I might just leave it on the title screen, assuming that is the title screen theme, for a minute, just to let you appreciate how atmospheric it is. It sounded really cool, and I want to hear the full thing of that as well. So the soundtrack is going to grow, of course it is, but it doesn't mean the first one's bad, which a lot of people seem to think the original Mario Scott soundtrack is, which is like, it's not. Have you not heard that final boss theme? Have you not heard like any of the boss themes, or like when those nightmare things are actually chasing you? That theme is terrifying, but really cool. It's all really good. But anyway, I guess to try and wrap up this segue of this entire video, what I was talking about, because the next two fights are fights I actually want to talk about, so I need to kind of wrap up this point eventually. Is essentially, I'm not sure what I want to let's play next year, but there's a lot of things I want to do that I can't, and a lot of things that I want to do but it might not be wise to do next. So I think it would be wise for me to take this break over Christmas anyway, because I kind of have to, because work's picking up, so I need to wrap this up when I can. But it might end up being a bit of a surprise for all of us, shall we say, what I end up doing next, because I'm not sure. I might end up just doing Dragon Star next because of how much I love the game, but we'll see. We'll really see. To be honest, when I originally started doing Let's Plays back in 2015, I really wasn't sure how long I was going to do it, or how long I was going to keep this up for, because I wasn't sure if I was going to continue to still enjoy it. And the truth of the matter is, I still absolutely completely enjoy it, so I want to keep on doing more. But because of that, there's always going to be a point where the games that I want to Let's Play start to thin out because I'm limited to only one console. If the PS5 keeps the SHAREfactory thing and is completely backwards compatible, that will never be a problem again, because my PlayStation 2 library is ginormous, and there isn't a single game up there on my collection on my shelves that I wouldn't happily play through again. Like whether it's Nocturne, whether it's Hitman 2 and Contracts, whether it's even Tony Hawk's Underground, I'd happily go through again. The Futurama video game on PS2 I like to show off, because so many people don't completely forget it exists, and although the game's far from perfect, I actually enjoyed it quite a lot for what it is. Speaking of Matt Groening stuff though, Simpsons Hit and Run I'd love to play. Batman Begins, the video game, is actually not too bad. There's a bunch of Lego games I wouldn't mind covering. The entire Splinter Cell series, the first 4 games, because, you know, the PS2 version of the 4th game is drastically superior to the HD version of the game, so I'd love to show that off. Maybe even one of the old Harry Potter games, since they were pretty decent, but I'm not sure how copyright would handle that. Metal Gear Solid I could cover. God Hand would be brilliant. All the old SpongeBob games, because I'd probably do a whole marathon for all the old SpongeBob games.
Are you ready? Let's go.
But there's so much I could go through. But I'm gonna leave that subject now, because this is what I'd consider the final boss of the pain area. There's still one more fight afterwards, but this is the hardest fight in the pain area. This is the final challenge, and so they handle it with a boss fight. And this giant dragon here is an actual unique enemy. It's not just an old enemy with upped stats, which is everything we fought so far. This is actually a unique enemy with a new name, even though its model is borrowed from a different boss. And so it does have a unique strategy per se to work with, which is not much of one. It's just, if you've got this far, you'll probably be able to deal with it. It's just harder than what you fought so far. just be wary that all the little fairy bourbon things flying around, their corruption level increases really quickly. So if you knock them through a glitch spot, be prepared for them to just immediately corrupt and go into a glitch form and get their stats increased. However, none of them are particularly strong either, so don't worry about it too much, because you'll probably kill them before too long. Case in point, I think 2 of them just died from Rapuka's attack right there. But I did want to highlight this fight, because if you're going along as well, although yeah, you should be able to win this fight, this fight might catch you off guard, because it is like essentially the final boss of this bit. Also, you probably noticed every single fight for like since last part, I've been making a habit of bringing in this summon, which is why I leveled him up to level 10 off screen as well, since you can level them up through the strain area. You can talk to Levin, I had to remember his name for a second, and he can upgrade your summons for you. And if you can upgrade your summons to level 10 at maximum. And if you do that, it just ups their stats, but it does help. But the bonus of having this guy in here is worth it, because having this summon in makes it so there's a chance of inflicting stun on every single strike. And although it doesn't work for everything, stun completely removes their turn. They will are guaranteed to lose at least 1 turn if you can inflict stun on an enemy. So the fact that I'm hitting almost every single enemy with stun every turn is an amazing thing, because it means only the boss is attacking each turn, because I think the boss is immune.
All good.
Yeah, it resisted it. I know there was a lot of misses in there, but one of them didn't say miss, it said resist. But as you can see, I'm trying to use attacks that destroys glitch spots as well, so I can keep the summon in as well, because since summons health bar essentially work as, look at the field bug percentage, if it hits 100 they go.
Alright.
So you can see every time I try to do an attack, I try and see if I can squeeze in destroying some glitch areas while I'm at it. Or glitch spots. But this boss and the next one coming up are the last hurdles in the game, really. There is going to be one more video, but it's going to be a very short video, so I'll probably just do it later today. Like, I'll give my voice a little bit of a break, since I am starting to tire and I have been doing this for an hour straight nearly. But I will do, like, I'll probably do the next video tomorrow, because it's only one more video left. Like, I'll probably do it later today, and it's not long at all, because all I'm showing off is the reward for beating the pain area, the portable dojo, and everyone's final stats essentially. And then for the sake of giving final thoughts, I run the credits again, because if I didn't, the video would literally only be like 3 minutes long. And then like, it's already hard enough to justify. Like, if I'd got through this last floor quicker, I would have just tacked it on the end. In fact, I probably could have, but for the sake of my sanity, I decided it'd be better to split it up than trying to go through hell and put myself in a harder position to try and edit them together there. I'd rather just do a 8 or so minute long video. I think I need to actually check. I'm not actually sure how long it is. I'm pretty sure it's less than 10 minutes. So it really is just going to be a small taste of the lead on the end. But it's just covering the reward we get for pain area, the portable dojo, since you're definitely going to have enough by the end of the pain area. The amount of money alone from the next fight, this guy here coming up, he gives you 3 million eni for beating him. But this is your final boss. It's a Nitoma Queen. And so you might already be ahead of me of what the reward is. You'll be able to summon this guy if you can beat it. Its name though is Jeez, which I love. I love how dumb his name is. Look at him. His name is Jeez. And even though he has 700,000 HP and he is the final boss, it's not quite how it works. There is a gimmick to this fight, which is why his defense is so non-existent, as you're going to see when we essentially attack him. What he will resist and reflect, or say counter you on, changes depending on what you use. The way it works is, if you use a physical attack regularly, he will counter the third physical attack that comes his way, regardless of who it comes from. As you're going to see me demonstrate here, 2 physical attacks came from Rapuka, so this was countered right off the bat. Because the last 2 things he took were physical attacks. So the next thing you need to do is magic. Or in this case, now the resist is counter is non-element magic. So now his physical counter, I believe, is turned off.
My turn.
So you essentially have to mix and match your strategy to get far with him. So you're going to see here, I'm going to use
All good.
an item and then try and get in again.
That's right.
And I get this, but because the next attack counts as magic, because it was Comet League, or Comet whatever it's called, it was counted, because since I haven't reset him yet. So essentially, to get through this fight, you need to have expanded your moveset. Because if you have a limited moveset, you're not winning this fight. And so now I'm going to use Elemental Magic, which is enough to reset the physical, use one physical attack, and then magic. But now he is resistant to magic, since 2 magical attacks have hit him.
My turn.
Well, at least to actual elemental magic.
All right. It's only.
But poor Sheena still gets countered in that thing. Like, you have to, it's kind of a bit of a, like, it is a gimmick, but it is a bit of a mind game. You have to kind of memorize, like, okay, what have you used, what is he countering, what can I use, and what can I not use. But when he's halfway down, it gets to a bit of a pressure point. And I'm not sure how this really works, so you're going to have to kind of bear with me, and if it's wrong, I'm sorry, it's just how I feel it works. After he's halfway down, though, something definitely changes with how he works. And at least to me, it comes across as, instead of working on the mechanic of whatever was used last getting countered, it starts to just stack up, like it gets added to the list of things that will be countered. So now Lunaria won't work, but Estate does, and it's thankfully just enough to finish him. Like, it's a weird fight, and you just got to kind of experiment and use everything, and you'll just get through it. But watch how much he drops.
Victory.
Like, the experience is pretty good, but he drops 1.5 million any, but then you get an extra bonus of another 1.5 million any. So you just get 3 million straight off him. And once you've done him, as soon as you defeated him, you've unlocked him as an Etona Queen. He is the last Etona Queen of the game, and he is stupidly broken. But there is, unfortunately, it's one of those things where, yeah, he's stupidly broken and really amazing, but the pain area is the very last thing you're going to do. So you've no reason to get a use out of him. Like, you've got the most powerful thing ever, but you've not got a reason to use him. So I show off what my final stats were for everyone, and I'm going to wrap this up because my throat is now getting rather tired. Next time on Death End Request will be the very last part of the project. We'll be wrapping up the very last few things there is to do and calling it a day. So until then, you guys take care now.
Welcome.
See yous.